Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. Oh my God, security, a woman's voice cracked through the lobby like a whip. You can't just let people walk in here. The Halcyon Royale was designed to intimidate politely, marble floors polished into mirrors, chandeliers dripping light, the air scented with money and restraint. The kind of place where even footsteps sounded expensive. Nia Brooks stepped through the revolving doors with a single carry-on trailing behind her. Black wool coat. Simple blouse. No visible labels screaming for permission. She moved like someone who didn't need to audition for respect. The shout pulled heads toward her anyway. At the front desk, Veronica Hale's smile arrived on schedule, bright, professional, and hollow. Her eyes scanned Nia the way some people scan a price tag, fast, judgmental, final. I have a reservation, Nia said, calm and even. Veronica's fingers tapped the keyboard once, twice, more performance than search. Then she looked up as if the screen had confirmed what she already decided. I'm not seeing anything under that name, Veronica replied. And, just so we're clear, this lobby is for registered guests. The words were soft. The message wasn't. A woman in a pale dress drifted closer, champagne flute poised like a gavel. Cassandra Wexler. Old money confidence. The kind of person who believed a room belonged to her simply because she occupied it. Cassandra's gaze swept Nia, coat, suitcase, skin, and her mouth curled. This is getting uncomfortable, Cassandra announced, loud enough to invite an audience. Veronica, darling, you should handle this before it becomes a situation. Phones lifted around the lobby, subtle at first, then not subtle at all. People loved a spectacle as long as it didn't cost them anything. Nia kept her eyes on Veronica. Try Brooks. First name Nia. Veronica didn't. She didn't have to. Not in her mind. Ma'am, Veronica said, tone sweetened with poison, do you have a corporate card? A member number? Something verifiable? Nia reached into her bag for her ID, measured, unhurried. No panic. No pleading. Just proof. That's when a guest in a tux brushed past too quickly, shoulder clipping Cassandra's champagne flute. The spill happened in a blink, pale gold splashing across Nia's blouse. A stain spread over white fabric like an accusation. The lobby inhaled as one organism. Then came the silence, the kind that isn't shocked, just entertained. Cassandra's hand rose to her mouth. Oh no. Her voice said sympathy. Her eyes didn't. Veronica took a step back as if the stain was contagious. Ma'am, Nia looked down at the spill, then back up. Her face didn't change. The room wanted her to shrink, to scramble, to apologize for being splashed. She didn't. A bellman, Luis, name stitched on his jacket, moved toward her with a towel, instinct beating policy. Miss, I can. Luis, Veronica snapped without turning, stay at your station. And that's when Cassandra's patience snapped into authority. I said security, Cassandra repeated, sharper this time. Now. Two security staff approached from the side, quick but controlled. Not running. Not grabbing. The way people move when they're trained to look calm while enforcing power. One of them stopped at an arm's length from Nia, blocking her path to the elevators without touching her. Ma'am, he said, rehearsed and polite, we're going to need you to step outside. Nia's gaze lifted slowly from his tie to his eyes. She wasn't defiant. She was anchored. "I'm a guest," she said. "You're removing me because of a guess." The guard hesitated just a fraction. The kind of hesitation that happens when a human being tries to peek through the uniform. That's when the side door opened. Grant Sutherland walked into the lobby with managerial confidence, suit crisp, expression colder than the marble underfoot. He took in the scene in the phones, the spill, Cassandra's righteous posture, then landed his eyes on Nia like she was a misplaced object. "What's going on?" he asked, but the question wasn't for her. Veronica rushed in first. "Sir, she's not in our system. She refuses to leave." Cassandra added, smooth as silk, "I don't want a scene in the lobby, Grant." Grant nodded as if her comfort were the only metric that mattered. Then he faced Nia. "Ma'am, this is private property. If you can't provide proper verification, you'll need to exit. We can arrange a car to a more suitable hotel." More suitable. The phrase hung in the air with a history behind it. Nia didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She simply reached for her phone with the calm of someone opening a file, not a fight. Grant's mouth tilted in a small, dismissive smile. "Go ahead," he said, almost amused. "Call whoever you want." Nia met his eyes. No heat. No fear. Just certainty. "Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here." Now, back to Nia Brooks. Nia's screen lit her face for a heartbeat. Her thumb hovered over a contact, no name visible from where anyone stood. Then she tapped. And in that instant, the lobby still didn't realize it had just declared war on the wrong woman. Grant Sutherland didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. At the Halcyon Royale, authority wore a low volume. "Let's step over here," he said, gesturing toward a seating area off to the side, velvet chairs, a discreet rope line, the kind of corner designed to remove people without the room noticing. But the room had already noticed. Phones were still up. Faces were turned. Cassandra Wexler stood near the desk like she'd commissioned the moment. Nia didn't move. "I can provide verification," she said evenly, lifting her ID from her bag. "And I have a confirmation number." Veronica's eyes flicked to the ID like it was something unpleasant. She didn't reach for it. Grant took it instead, 2 fingers, careful not to touch more than necessary. He glanced at the name and photo, then handed it back too quickly, as if the paper itself challenged his narrative. "That doesn't prove you're a guest," he said. "It proves you have an ID." Nia's gaze held steady. "Then run the confirmation." Grant's jaw tightened a fraction. He looked to Veronica. "Pull it up." Veronica's fingers moved again, fast, performative. She paused, frowned, clicked once more. Then she tilted the monitor slightly away from Nia, as if shielding the screen from contamination. "I'm still not seeing it," she said, too smoothly. Louis stood a few feet away with the towel still in his hands, frozen between what was right and what he was allowed to do. His eyes met Nia's for a moment, an apology without words. Nia didn't look at him long. She didn't want him punished for being human. Cassandra exhaled dramatically. "Grant, we're all waiting. People are trying to relax." Grant gave a small nod, as if Cassandra's comfort were a contractual obligation. "Ma'am," he said to Nia, voice pleasant in the way a locked door can be pleasant, "if you're not in our system, we can't accommodate you." "It's not personal. It's policy." Nia's mouth didn't move into a smile. Policy is a choice. That earned a tiny ripple of reaction. One of the phones bobbed, someone whispered. Grant's eyes sharpened. Security, he said, not louder, just firmer. Escort her outside. The guard who'd been blocking Nia shifted his stance, still not touching, but closing space, steering with body language. The other guard moved toward her suitcase. Louise flinched. Sir, I can take care of. Back, Veronica snapped, her tone suddenly ugly. That's not your job. Louis stopped. His hands clenched around the towel. Nia turned slightly, placing herself between the guard and her bag. Don't touch my belongings. The guard paused. He wasn't eager. He was paid. There was a difference. Grant watched the hesitation and frowned, irritated by anything that slowed his control. Ma'am, he said, you're causing a disturbance. Nia's eyes drifted past into the lobby, people in designer coats pretending not to stare while recording anyway. The chandelier light caught the wet stain on her blouse, turning it into something theatrical. The room wanted a reaction. She refused to give them one. Instead, she took out her phone again, calm as paperwork. Grant's mouth tilted with that same dismissive amusement, but there was a new edge underneath it now. A worry he didn't want to confess. You can call whoever you want, he repeated. We're still asking you to leave. Nia unlocked the screen and scrolled once. Her thumb hovered. She didn't look down when she spoke. What's your full name? Grant blinked. Excuse me? Your full name, she repeated, soft but exact. And the employee ID of the staff member who refused to process my confirmation. Veronica's eyes widened a fraction, fear slipping through the polish. Grant's chin lifted. That's not information we provide to. To who? Nia asked, her tone unchanged. For the first time, Grant didn't answer immediately. Cassandra laughed, brittle. Oh, please. This is ridiculous. Nia turned her head slightly toward Cassandra, not fully facing her, like Cassandra didn't deserve the effort. You didn't spill that drink by accident, Nia said. A hush cut through the lobby. Even the piano music from the bar seemed to thin out. Cassandra's smile faltered, then snapped back into place. How dare you accuse me? I'm not accusing, Nia replied. I'm documenting. That word landed differently. Documenting meant consequences. It meant records. It meant lawyers. Grant stepped closer, lowering his voice as if quiet could contain the damage. Ma'am, I'm going to ask you one last time. Nia raised her phone slightly, just enough for him to see the contact name on the screen. Not a friend. Not a relative. A professional line. Her thumb pressed the call button. On the first ring, Grant scoffed, then forced a thin smile for the watching lobby, trying to look in charge. The second ring changed his face. Because someone answered immediately. Nia brought the phone to her ear. Ava, she said, and her voice finally carried something sharper than calm, something like certainty made audible. Timestamp is 8:42 p.m. Lobby camera should have audio. I need the incident preserved. And I want the sponsorship clauses pulled, every one. Grant's smile froze. Veronica's hand drifted toward her mouth. Louis's eyes widened, like he just heard a door unlock. Nia listened for a beat, then nodded once. Yes. Tonight. She lowered the phone and looked straight at Grant. You can escort me out, she said softly. But you're going to do it on camera. And you're going to do it knowing your board will see exactly who you chose to be. Grant swallowed. Behind him, Cassandra's champagne glass trembled, just slightly, in her manicured hand. The lobby kept recording. And for the first time, the Halcyon Royale didn't feel like a throne. It felt like a courtroom. Outside the revolving doors, the city's cold hit like a slap, wet air, traffic hiss, rain turning the hotel's bronze awning into a dripping curtain. Nia stood just beyond the line where the Halcyon Royale's warmth stopped pretending it belonged to everyone. Behind the glass, the lobby still glowed gold. Phones still lifted. Grant still performed calm. Cassandra still held her smile together with sheer entitlement. Nia didn't look back for long. She used the towel Louise had tried to offer earlier, now folded and discreetly handed off by a different staffer who wouldn't meet her eyes. The stain on her blouse wasn't just a mess. It was evidence. She heard Ava Chen's voice again in her ear, steady, brisk, precise. A lawyer's voice that didn't waste emotion on people who didn't deserve it. "Say it again," Ava said. "Time, location, and who initiated removal." 8:42 p.m. Lobby front desk. "General manager ordered security," Nia replied, gaze on the security camera tucked above the entrance. Front desk lead refused to run confirmation. "And the spill?" Nia paused half a beat. "A guest. Cassandra Wexler. It wasn't accidental." Ava's exhale came through the line, controlled but sharp. "Understood. I'm issuing a preservation notice right now. All footage. All audio. Every camera angle from 8:30 to 9:15. Nia watched a valet run through the rain to open a door for a couple in designer coats, laughing, dry, protected. The same hotel that had just decided she didn't belong. "Do you want me to come to you?" Ava asked. "No," Nia said. "Do your part. I'll do mine." Ava didn't argue. "Then listen carefully. Their sponsorship agreement has a conduct and reputation clause. If staff behavior creates a public discrimination incident, we have grounds to terminate for cause. But I need one more thing." "What?" "Confirmation the hotel accepted the funds under the current campaign. Any public marketing. Any board memo. Anything tying them to us this quarter." Nia's eyes narrowed slightly. "You'll have it." The rain thickened. Her phone screen glowed against the night. A calendar notification sat there, quiet and ordinary. "Tomorrow, 9 a.m., Halcyon Royale Sustainability Showcase." They'd invited press. Influencers. Politicians. They'd built an entire stage to sell the idea that the Halcyon Royale had evolved. And they'd done it with her money. The $900 million sponsorship wasn't a check. It was a lifeline structured in tranches, tied to milestones, tied to optics. A ribbon around a sinking ship. The Halcyon's owners had been bleeding cash for years, old debt, expensive renovations, shrinking occupancy as newer brands ate their market share. This green rebrand was supposed to save them. They'd plastered the campaign everywhere: cleaner energy, inclusive hospitality, ethical luxury. Inclusive. Nia almost laughed, but she didn't give the night that satisfaction. Across the street, her car waited, nothing flashy, just black and quiet. The driver stepped out and held an umbrella over her without speaking. Nia slid into the back seat, and the world dampened, rain muted, city noise softened, the hotel's glow receding behind tinted glass. Ava's voice returned, faster now. "I've drafted the preservation letter. It's going to their legal department and their corporate parent. If they delete anything after receipt, it becomes a different kind of problem." "Good." "And Nia, be honest," Ava added. Do you want corrective action, or do you want blood? Nia looked down at her blouse, at the stain that would wash out in the laundry but not in the public record. I want accountability, she said. Not theater. Ava gave a soft, knowing hum. Then we do it clean. The car pulled away. Nia watched the Halcyon's entrance shrink in the rear window. From this angle, it looked less like a palace and more like a polished box, beautiful from afar, rotten at the seams. Ava continued, their board is already nervous. You know that. The moment this hits online, they'll panic. They'll offer apologies. They'll offer scapegoats. They'll offer you a private suite and a public statement. Nia's voice stayed low. They'll offer me what they should have offered at the desk, basic respect. And they'll think it's a gift. Exactly, Ava said. So we don't negotiate dignity. We enforce standards. Nia tapped her screen, forwarding Ava a screenshot she'd saved earlier, the Halcyon campaign page with her company's logo embedded in their Future of Ethical Luxury banner. Ava's response came almost instantly, perfect. That ties acceptance to ongoing consideration. Nia leaned back as the city lights slid over the car roof like moving water. Next, Ava said, I'm pulling the termination language. The full clause package. If we terminate for cause, they lose the remaining disbursement immediately and they'll owe penalties. Nia's eyes didn't widen. She already knew. That was the difference between someone who begged for entry and someone who built doors. Ava paused, then added, one more question. Are you ready for the backlash? They'll claim misunderstanding. They'll accuse you of overreacting. They'll say you're destroying jobs. Nia stared out at the rain-smeared street. They destroyed jobs the moment they decided people like me don't belong in their lobby. Ava went quiet for a second, then her voice returned, crisp. All right. I'm sending you the draft. Nia's phone vibrated. An email attachment arrived, clean and final like a blade in an envelope. Subject line, Notice of Termination, $900 million sponsorship. Nia didn't open it yet. She just watched the words sit there on her screen, glowing softly in the dark, like a verdict waiting to be read aloud. Nia didn't open the attachment right away. She let it sit on her screen like a weight, proof that this wasn't emotion, it was process. The kind of process that didn't require shouting to be lethal. The car rolled through downtown, wipers keeping time with the rain. Her driver kept both hands on the wheel and his eyes forward, like he understood privacy wasn't silence, it was respect. Ava's message followed the draft, I've looped in compliance and finance. If you authorize, we can freeze disbursement before midnight. Nia stared at the Halcyon's logo on the email header, elegant lettering, a crest designed to look timeless. She thought of Veronica's eyes scanning her like a security threat. Grant's voice saying, more suitable. Cassandra's champagne trembling like it had never met consequences. Nia finally opened the document. It wasn't dramatic. It was clean. Paragraphs. Dates. Clauses. The kind of language that made institutions behave because institutions understood paperwork better than they understood people. Ava's drafting was surgical. Preservation demand for all lobby footage and audio. Notice of breach, discriminatory denial of service by staff and management. Material harm, reputational damage amplified by public recording. Termination for cause under conduct/reputation provisions. Immediate suspension of all pending funds. Requirement, internal investigation, corrective action, and third-party audit if they wanted any future relationship. Nia read it once. Then again. Not because she doubted it, because she wanted it to be exact. Her phone buzzed. A number she didn't recognize. She didn't answer. Let it ring into silence. Then another call, this time a private line she knew. Ava. Nia picked up. Talk. You're going to get incoming, Ava said. Their corporate counsel just acknowledged the preservation notice. That means they know it's real. Nia watched streetlights blur into long gold streaks across the wet glass. Good. Ava's voice stayed measured. But before you authorize termination, I need you clear on the ripple. The Halcyon is in the middle of a rebrand rollout. They've already spent against the campaign budget. Cutting them off tonight will cause immediate breach of their vendor contracts. Nia didn't blink. They should have thought about that before they tried to remove me like trash. Understood, Ava replied, and the words sounded like a latch clicking shut. Still, be prepared. They'll say you're punishing workers for management decisions. Nia's jaw tightened. Workers like Luis are the only people I'm thinking about. Ava paused. Then we do it your way. We terminate, and we redirect. Nia's eyes lifted slightly. How fast can we restructure the pledge? Fast, Ava said. But first we need the stop. Without the stop, there's no leverage to build the start. The driver slowed at a red light. On the corner, a group of hotel staff under a shared umbrella laughed, exhausted and soaked. Real people. People who didn't get to choose what kind of day they had. Nia looked down at the email again. The subject line felt heavier now, $900 million. A number so large it could turn cruelty into policy, and policy into silence. Nia typed a short reply to Ava, proceed. Then she deleted the word. Typed it again. Proceed. Her thumb hovered. Not because she was afraid. Because she knew exactly what she was about to do, and she wanted the decision to be hers, not the hotel's. Ava's voice came through again, quieter. Nia. Tell me what you want on the record. Nia's gaze drifted to her reflection faintly visible in the window, staying still on her blouse, eyes steady. I want it recorded that they denied me service without checking my reservation, Nia said. I want it recorded that the GM ordered security after a guest escalated. And I want it recorded that they attempted to remove me while people filmed. No assumptions. Just facts. Ava exhaled. Got it. Another vibration. A text from an unknown number, Ms. Brooks, this is Grant Sutherland. Please call me immediately. We can resolve this privately. Nia didn't respond. A second text arrived, same thread, there has been a misunderstanding. Our team is ready to apologize and accommodate you. Misunderstanding. That word always arrived right on time, after the harm, before the consequences. Nia forwarded the texts to Ava. Ava replied instantly, perfect. Admission of awareness. Keep everything. The car turned into a quieter street lined with dark trees and gated entrances. Nia's building wasn't flashy, just secure. The kind of place where nobody tried to guess if you belonged. When the car stopped, the driver got out and opened the door. Rain spattered the pavement like static. Nia stepped under the awning and took one last glance at her phone. Ava's message, if you authorize now, finance can freeze the midnight release. Once it goes out, clawback is harder. Nia didn't hesitate anymore. She tapped. One action. One decision. And somewhere across the city, in a glass-walled office at the Halcyon's corporate headquarters, a notification would hit an inbox like a dropped knife. Nia walked inside, shrugged off her coat, and placed her phone on the counter. She didn't change her blouse yet. She wanted to keep the stain for a little longer, not as a wound, but as a reminder. Then she picked the phone back up and called Ava again. "Send the termination," Nia said, voice low and final. "Tonight." Ava didn't ask if she was sure. "Understood. It's going out now." Nia stared at the rain sliding down the window pane, listening to the quiet hum of her apartment. No cheering. No dramatic music. Just the sound of a decision moving through systems like electricity. A moment later, Ava texted a single line. "Notice sent. Effective immediately." Nia's eyes closed for half a second. Not relief. Not victory. Control. Because justice didn't need volume. It needed teeth. The email didn't land with a sound. It landed with effects. At 11:17 p.m., the Halcyon Royale's corporate counsel opened Ava Chen's notice of termination and felt the floor move under their feet, not because of the words, but because of the attachments. Time stamps. Clause citations. Screenshots of the hotel's campaign page with Nia's company logo. Preservation demands with consequences spelled out in plain legal English. No insults. No threats. Just a door closing. By 11:23, the hotel CFO got the internal alert: disbursement scheduled for 12 a.m. has been frozen. By 11:26, vendor relations received a cascade of cancellations: production crews for the morning showcase, floral contracts, catering add-ons, influencer suites. They weren't told why at first. They were simply told the funds were no longer guaranteed. And by 11:31, Grant Sutherland's phone started ringing so hard it felt personal. He was in his office above the lobby, jacket off, tie loosened, still telling himself this could be managed. He'd seen problems before. A guest complaint. A staff mistake. A bad review. Nothing a well-timed apology couldn't mop up. Then his assistant knocked without waiting. "Grant Corporate is online too. They're asking if you've seen the email." Grant's throat tightened. "What email?" His assistant didn't answer. She didn't have to. Grant grabbed his laptop, fingers suddenly clumsy, and opened his inbox. Subject line, bold as a verdict: notice of termination, $900 million sponsorship. For a moment he stared at it like the words might rearrange themselves into something less fatal. They didn't. He clicked. The first page was polite, structured, and unforgiving. The kind of writing that made powerful people feel small because it didn't need their permission. He skimmed, and then he stopped skimming when he saw the phrase. Termination for cause. Effective immediately, ****. Grant read the clause citations with the dawning horror of a man realizing he'd been arguing with the wrong kind of power. This wasn't social media outrage. This wasn't a PR storm. This was contractual enforcement. A second knock. Harder. Veronica Hale stepped in, face pale under her makeup. She held her phone like it was burning her hand. "Grant," she whispered, "there's a video." Grant barely looked up. "Take it down." "I can't," Veronica said. "It's not ours." Her thumb trembled as she turned the screen toward him. A clip, 30 seconds, filmed from the lobby. Nia's blouse stained. Security blocking her path. Grant's voice, clear enough to subtitle, ***, we can arrange a car to a more suitable hotel. ***. And then, louder than anything, Cassandra's sharp call, ***, security. Asterisk. The caption over the video read, "Luxury hotel denies service to black woman, GM calls security." The view count ticked upward in real time. Grant's phone buzzed again. Corporate. Board. PR, legal. He answered line 2. A voice came through, flat, furious, controlled. "Grant, tell me you did not order security to remove the sponsor." Grant blinked. "The sponsor?" "Don't play stupid," the voice snapped. "We have a termination notice from her counsel, $900 million. Gone. Frozen. Do you understand what you've done?" Grant's mouth opened, but no clean lie arrived fast enough. "It was a misunderstanding," he said finally, and the weakness of it tasted sour. "Misunderstanding?" The voice sharpened. "There are cameras. There's audio. And we're being told to preserve everything. If we delete a single frame, it becomes spoliation. If this becomes a discrimination case, our insurers will run." Grant's vision tunneled. "What do you want me to do?" "You're going to find her," the voice said. "Tonight. You're going to apologize. You're going to offer restitution. And you're going to pray she gives us a path back." Grant swallowed. "Yes." The call ended like a guillotine. Veronica stood frozen. She never told me who she was." Grant looked at her, and something in his expression turned sharp, not protective, not managerial. Survivalist. "Why didn't you run the confirmation?" he asked. Veronica's eyes flashed, defensive panic. "I did. It didn't come up." Grant stared at her. "Then you did it wrong. Or you didn't do it at all." Veronica's breath hitched. "Grant!" "No," he cut in, voice low. "No, you don't get to grant me right now." Downstairs in the lobby, the night shift was trying to keep the building breathing. Guests murmured. Staff whispered. Security hovered. And then a new email hit every executive inbox at once. Suspension of all brand usage, immediate removal required. Nia's company demanded the Halcyon remove their logo, their name, their association from all signage, digital ads, and the morning showcase materials immediately. Non-compliance would trigger penalties. It was a demolition order delivered with a signature. Grant rubbed his face with both hands, then stood so abruptly his chair rolled back. "We're going downstairs," he told Veronica. "To do what?" she asked, voice small. Grant's jaw flexed. "To contain the bleeding." They reached the lobby just as another alert came through on Grant's phone, finance again. Freeze confirmed. Midnight release stopped, ****. In the corner, Luis was resetting a display table, hands moving mechanically. He looked up when Grant approached and then looked down again, like he'd learned what it cost to be seen. Grant caught his eye. "Luis," Grant said, voice attempting kindness, "where did she go?" Luis paused. His expression wasn't defiant. It was tired. "I don't know, sir," he said quietly. "But you should have known she belonged before you ever asked." Grant's face tightened. Across the lobby, Cassandra Wexler stood near the bar, scrolling her phone with a frown. Her world had never included consequences, and she was meeting them like an unfamiliar language. She glanced up at Grant, annoyed. "This has gotten out of hand," she said. "You need to fix it." Grant looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, he didn't see a VIP. He saw a liability with diamonds. He didn't answer. Because the truth had finally arrived, and it didn't care who Cassandra was. The Halcyon Royale had tried to remove one woman quietly. Instead, they had triggered a shutdown, legal, financial, reputational, moving through their business like a controlled burn. And somewhere in the city, Nia Brooks was sitting in calm silence while an empire learned what her patients had been holding back. By morning, the Halcyon Royale looked the same from the outside. That was the problem. The facade still gleamed. The flags still snapped in the wind. The doormen still wore their perfect coats. But inside, the building had the unsettled energy of a house where someone just read a will aloud. At 6:12 a.m., the first cancellation hit the front desk system. Not one room. A block. Then another. A corporate travel manager's message followed, blunt and bloodless, effective immediately. We're moving all stays to a competitor pending investigation. At 6:27, catering called the banquet manager. They'd received notice the funding was under dispute and were halting prep until they got written assurance. They didn't want to be the vendor stuck holding the bag. By 6:45, the morning's sustainability showcase, Halcyon's big redemption arc, was already limping. The hotel's marketing team arrived early to plaster sponsor signage across the lobby and ballroom. They stopped short when they saw the new directive, printed and taped near the service elevator like a warning label. Remove all brand assets, immediate compliance required. Someone had circled the word immediate 3 times in red ink. On the main floor, guests trickled down for breakfast. They didn't look at the chandeliers. They looked at their phones. They whispered behind coffee cups. They angled screens toward each other with the same hungry curiosity people used to reserve for scandals involving celebrities. Now it was a hotel. A luxury brand. A misunderstanding. And a black woman with a stained blouse. The video had reached the level where it stopped being entertainment and became a question. A question the hotel couldn't answer. At 7:18, a news producer emailed the hotel's generic press address, "We're running this story at 9. Would you like to comment?" At 7:22, another email, "Please confirm whether the woman is an invited sponsor representative." At 7:25, a third, "Did the hotel contact law enforcement?" PR scrambled, trying to build a statement in the same way people build a dam: fast, messy, and always too late. And Grant Sutherland stood in the back office with his phone pressed to his ear, listening to corporate's crisis lead speak in a tone that sounded like disappointment made professional. "You're going to stop talking," the voice said. "You're going to stop texting her. You're going to stop making this personal. This is now a corporate event." Grant stared at the lobby through a glass pane, Veronica at the desk, stiff as a mannequin. Security stationed closer than usual. Guests watching them like they were actors who'd forgotten their lines. "She won't answer," Grant said, voice tight. "I need to speak to her." "You needed to speak to her last night," the voice snapped back. "Now you need to contain the fallout." Grant swallowed, then forced the next words out. "What's the board saying?" The crisis lead didn't hesitate. "They're asking why you didn't recognize her name. They're asking why your staff didn't run a confirmation number. They're asking what else is on those lobby cameras." Grant's stomach turned. The lobby cameras. That's what made it worse. Not just the incident, how clean it was on film. How plain the bias sounded in real time. How impossible it was to edit dignity out of a person's posture. At 8:03, the first influencer arrived anyway, camera crew in tow, dressed for a green luxury backdrop. She walked into the lobby, saw the tension, asked a question too loudly. "Is this where the discrimination thing happened?" The front desk manager tried to redirect her. The influencer didn't let her. Within minutes, the lobby became a revolving door of people who weren't staying at the hotel but wanted to stand in it long enough to say they were there. They filmed themselves under the chandelier. They pointed at the front desk like it was a crime scene. Staff kept working because staff always worked. They checked in guests. They smiled. They apologized. They pretended this was normal. But it wasn't. At 8:21, a family with 2 suitcases approached the desk. The father leaned in, voice quiet but sharp. "Are you the hotel that kicked out that woman?" he asked. Veronica's lips parted. No script for that. Before she could answer, the mother said, "We're going somewhere else." They turned around and left their luggage right there for a second, like they couldn't even bear to drag it across the Halcyon's marble. The marble, spotless, didn't feel clean anymore. Luis watched the exchange from near the bell stand, hands folded behind his back. He looked like someone carrying a secret he never asked for. At 8:46, Grant's assistant ran in, breathless. "They're here," she whispered. "Who?" Grant demanded. The assistant's eyes darted toward the ballroom corridor. "The board." Grant's face drained. The Halcyon's owners didn't usually show up in person. They didn't like the smell of operational mess. They liked numbers. They liked distance. But now their money was bleeding in public. A group of suits entered the lobby with the same energy as paramedics, moving quickly, scanning for damage, trying not to make eye contact with the crowd. Guests recognized them instantly, even if they didn't know their names. Powerful people had a certain kind of gravity. It made rooms quiet around them. One of the board members, a gray-haired man with an expensive watch and a look of controlled panic, leaned toward Grant. "Where is she?" he asked under his breath. Grant's mouth tightened. "I don't know." The board member's smile was thin and furious. "Then find out." A woman beside him, legal counsel, sharp eyes, added, "And you will say nothing else without us." Grant nodded, but his gaze flicked toward the doors as if he could will Nia to appear and save him from what he'd started. Across the lobby, Cassandra Wexler stood near the bar, scrolling with a deepening scowl. She looked less like royalty and more like someone realizing the internet didn't care who her family was. She caught Grant's eye and lifted her chin, as if he owed her protection. Grant didn't move. Because at that moment, the power hierarchy had shifted. The lobby wasn't a throne room anymore. It was a public record. And the board had come in person for the same reason everyone else was watching their phones. They needed Nia Brooks back. Not because they respected her. Because without her, the Halcyon Royale was just a beautiful building with a very expensive problem. And now, that problem had a timestamp. The board expected a deal. A headline-friendly apology. A staged handshake. A learning moment wrapped in velvet and released by noon. What they didn't expect was that Nia Brooks would treat their panic like a broken system, something you don't soothe with words, something you fix with structure. By 2:14 p.m., the Halcyon's executive conference room had emptied out. The board had left in a tight cluster, faces stiff, phones glued to their palms, already calling lenders and insurers and anyone who might keep the building from collapsing under its own reputation. Grant Sutherland stayed behind long enough to watch the door close, then sat down like his bones had finally remembered gravity. Veronica stood near the wall, arms folded tight across her chest, eyes swollen from crying in a restroom stall she thought no one knew about. She wasn't crying for Nia. She was crying because the world had stopped agreeing to pretend. Nia didn't look at either of them for long. Her attention was on Ava Chan and the small team that had arrived with her, a compliance officer, a finance lead, and a crisis communications director who didn't speak unless spoken to. Quiet professionals. The kind who handled billion-dollar decisions like paperwork, not drama. Ava slid a folder across the table toward Nia. "This is the redirect plan," she said. "We can announce within the hour." Nia opened it. Inside were clean, deliberate pages. A new vehicle. A new distribution plan. A new story that didn't need the Halcyon to star in it. They were calling it the Hospitality Dignity Fund, a restricted initiative housed under her company's philanthropic arm, with an independent administrator and third-party auditing built into the structure from day one. Not a vague promise. A mechanism. Ava's voice stayed calm. "We're not taking $900 million and lighting it on fire. We're reallocating the commitment to a program that actually reaches workers. We can pledge it in tranches to verified partners, workforce development nonprofits, scholarship programs, emergency assistance funds. Every dollar tracked." Nia turned a page. "How fast can the first tranche move?" "Fast," the finance lead said. "We can release an initial $25 million within 10 business days, contingent on the oversight board and the vendor contracts. The rest follows as milestones are met." Nia nodded once. "Do it." Ava tapped the next page. "We also include a worker protection clause. Any Halcyon employee impacted by today's cancellations, contractors, banquet staff, hourly workers, can apply for short-term bridge grants. It's not charity. It's stabilization." Nia's jaw tightened at the word impacted. "Make it accessible," she said. "No 10-page forms. No humiliation in a different outfit." The compliance officer scribbled notes. "We can set up a hotline and a secure portal," he said. "Verification through pay stubs or employee IDs. Funds dispersed via prepaid debit or ACH." Nia's eyes stayed steady. "And we require an independent investigation into the Halcyon's practices," she added. "Not their internal PR report. Real auditing." Ava nodded, already there. "We'll partner with a third-party firm. If the Halcyon wants any future business with any entity under your portfolio, they'll have to comply with the audit, publish the findings, and implement the corrective plan." Nia sat back slightly. The room was quiet in the way rooms get when money is being moved in a direction power didn't plan for. Grant's voice came out raw from the corner. "You're going to destroy us." Nia didn't look at him right away. When she finally did, her expression wasn't cruel. It was factual. "No," she said. "I'm refusing to keep you alive with my name." Grant swallowed. "People will lose jobs." Nia's gaze sharpened, not with anger, but with clarity. People lose jobs every day because executives protect the brand instead of the workers. Don't put that on me. Veronica's lips parted, trembling. "We didn't know." Nia cut her off with a single glance. "You knew I was a person," she said, voice low and even. "That should have been enough." Ava's phone buzzed on the table. "A message from PR, media is outside. They're asking for comment. They're asking for her." Nia stood. She didn't straighten her blouse to hide the stain. She didn't change into something appropriate for their cameras. She walked toward the door the way she'd walked into the lobby the night before, controlled, quiet, unbendable. In the press area downstairs, microphones clustered like nervous birds. Camera lights washed the room in white. The Halcyon's representatives stood to the side, pale and silent. They looked like people who wanted to be forgiven without being examined. Nia stepped to the podium with Ava just behind her. No trembling hands. No raised voice. No performance. She delivered the facts. Yesterday evening, I was denied service at the Halcyon Royale without my reservation being properly verified, she said. I was then subjected to public humiliation and an attempted removal. The incident was recorded. The footage is preserved. Our counsel has issued the appropriate legal notices. A journalist shouted, "Are you canceling the sponsorship?" Nia didn't flinch. "Yes," she said. Effective immediately. The room stirred gasps, murmurs, the fast clacking of keyboards. Nia continued before anyone could spin it into a soundbite shaped like revenge. This sponsorship was intended to support ethical hospitality, she said. That means protecting workers and respecting guests. A building can be beautiful and still be unjust. I will not fund injustice. Another reporter, so what happens to the $900 million? Nia paused just long enough for the question to hang, then answered like a door opening. It will be redirected, she said, to the Hospitality Dignity Fund, supporting training, scholarships, emergency assistance for hospitality workers, and independent accountability programs across the industry. We will publish quarterly audits. Every dollar will be tracked. A man near the front called out, "Is this because you're angry?" Nia's eyes held his, steady as stone. "This is because standards matter," she said. "And dignity is not negotiable." She stepped back. No victory pose. No smile. No invitation for applause. Just a decision placed into the world like a weight that couldn't be ignored. Behind her, the Halcyon's board watched the cameras and finally understood something they should have learned long before contracts ever entered the conversation. Money can buy chandeliers. It cannot buy character. And when character shows up, quiet, documented, undeniable, systems either change or they break. The Halcyon Royale didn't collapse overnight. Brands like that rarely do. They don't fall in one dramatic moment. They bleed quietly, publicly, expensively, until the numbers force the truth into the open. 3 days after Nia's press statement, the hotel released its own apology. It was carefully written, lawyered, and hollow in the way corporate remorse often is, heavy on values and light on responsibility. But the internet didn't want adjectives. It wanted receipts. And the receipts had timestamps. By the end of the week, the Halcyon's occupancy dropped hard enough that staff started noticing in their tips, not just in spreadsheets. The breakfast room felt emptier. The valet line shortened. The lobby, once built to flex, looked like a stage after the audience left. Behind closed doors, the board didn't talk about morality. They talked about risk. Lenders called. Partners paused. A second sponsor requested clarification and then quietly pulled out. Insurance asked for documentation. Regulators asked for policies. The hotel's attorneys asked for silence. And inside that tightening circle, someone had to be offered up. Grant Sutherland was gone in 10 days. Not because the board had suddenly grown a conscience, but because boards know how to cut weight when the ship starts taking on water. They announced it as a mutual separation. The phrase sounded peaceful. His severance wasn't. His reputation wasn't. The hospitality industry is small, and it has a long memory for public failure. Grant's name became a cautionary tale in private group chats and executive circles, an example of how quickly professional can become liability. Veronica didn't get a press release. She got a meeting in HR and a document slid across the table with her name already printed at the bottom. She signed it with shaking hands, not because she wanted to, but because she finally understood what the world felt like when power had already decided your story. Luis kept his job. But the day after the backlash, he found an envelope taped to the inside of his locker, a hotline number, a website, and a note with no signature. Apply. Don't be proud. He almost threw it away. Pride was survival in his world. Pride kept you from becoming someone's charity case. But Rent didn't care about pride. He applied that night. 2 weeks later, Luis received a bridge grant enough to cover 3 months of expenses and a deposit on a training program he'd always wanted but could never afford, hospitality management certification with a track toward operations leadership. When he saw the approval email, he sat on the edge of his bed and stared at it for a long time. Not because he didn't believe in help. Because he wasn't used to help that didn't come with humiliation. Meanwhile, Cassandra Wexler learned what her family money couldn't buy. Her social circle didn't cancel her publicly. They did something colder. They distanced. Invitations stopped arriving. A charity committee quietly replaced her. A friend who used to laugh at everything she said suddenly couldn't make it to lunch. Cassandra posted a long message about being misunderstood. It didn't land. Because the video didn't show misunderstanding. It showed instinct. And the internet was fluent in instinct. On Nia's side, a hospitality dignity fund moved the way Nia moved: quiet, structured, undeniable. Quarterly audits went public right on schedule. The first tranche funded emergency assistance for hourly workers across multiple cities, rent support, childcare stipends, transportation vouchers. The second tranche built scholarships tied to accredited programs and union-backed training initiatives. The third tranche partnered with independent investigators to create an accountability framework hotels could opt into or be shamed for avoiding. No dramatic branding. No glittering gala. Just impact. The media tried to chase Nia for interviews. Some framed it as revenge. Others framed it as philanthropy. A few tried to frame it as too harsh. Nia refused every narrative that made it about her emotions. When she finally agreed to one sit-down, short, controlled, recorded, she corrected the interviewer with the calm of someone filing a report. "I didn't end a sponsorship because my feelings were hurt," she said. "I ended it because their behavior violated the standard they asked me to fund." The interviewer asked, "Do you ever regret not giving them a second chance?" Nia didn't answer quickly. Not for suspense, for honesty. "Second chances are for people who admit what they did without needing a headline to force it," she said. They didn't want a second chance. They wanted a second cover-up. A month later, the Halcyon implemented new policies. Training. A diversity consultant. Updated guest escalation protocols. They did everything they could to prove they were changing. Some of it was real. Some of it was theater. But even theater can become habit when the cost of not performing is too high. One evening, Nia walked into a different hotel in a different city, still in a simple coat, still without visible labels, still moving with that quiet control. The front desk clerk greeted her without scanning her like a threat. "Welcome," the clerk said warmly. "Ms. Brooks, we're glad you're here." No suspicion. No gatekeeping. No test. Just respect. Nia nodded once and accepted the key card. As she turned toward the elevators, she caught her reflection in the polished wall, steady eyes, shoulders squared, a woman who had learned long ago that dignity wasn't something you begged for. It was something you enforced. And somewhere, in a lobby that used to feel like a throne, a hotel was learning the only lesson that actually lasts. Luxury isn't marble. It's how you treat people when you think no one important is watching. Because the truth is, someone always is.